Now, let's see how to do that practically. How to do a remote attack on any device. It could be a computer, it could be a smartphone, but how can we do the same attack that we explained earlier remotely? As I explained in the previous lecture, you have first to forward the port. And I went through that on the previous lecture, and I show you how to go in your router to the port forwarding. It could be different interface, but definitely you will find something called port forwarding. And you can do, the same way I did right now. I did forward all the traffic coming from outside to my router through the target port 44 or 80 or 443 to the computer 192.168.1.107, which is my Kali Linux machine. If I go to the Kali Linux and I search, and I check the IP, you will see that the local IP, it's 17. And depend on the attacks that you want to implement, you can add here any IP, any port. So you can say, okay, I want any traffic coming from outside, targeting, for instance, port 5555 till port 5555, and you give it any name and you add it, and it will be added as here as well. So what I'm saying here is that I'm configuring my router that any traffic coming to this router and target a specific port, it will be directed to a specific computer. And according to that, if I do an attack in my Kali Linux machine that accept connection on port 80 or 443, as I'm going to show you right now, and the victim from outside my network click on the link, and the traffic is going to my Kali Linux machine, it will reach the router. The router will redirect it to my Kali Linux machine, and I will accept my connection on my Kali Linux machine, even if I have more machine behind the network. I have other machines that have other IP and tablet and smartphone, but now the traffic will be redirected from my router to my specific Kali Linux machine. And same concept apply. I mean, if I have one computer inside my local network that has an FTP server, and I need people to connect, whenever they connect remotely to my network, they will connect to this specific computer in my LAN. I can forward the traffic to port 21 to this computer. So the concept apply on many things. Now, to test the settings that I did, I can go from any machine, including Kali Linux or any machine, and I can type or scan, and I can use nmap, which you already explained, -s, capital S, and we can put the IP of the router. How can I get the IP of the router? If you go to whatismyip.com, it will show you the public IPs that you have, and this will be the IP that will be sent to the victim. So we can copy that, and we can put it here, paste, and let's see. We should find all the port that we forward has been opened, port 80, port 443, port 444. And if you add more port, it will be open on the router as well, because it will accept traffic to this port and forward this port to the specific machine. Now let's test the attack. What I'm going to do, I will go, for instance, now for the attack, I don't need to go through the attacks one more time. You can do the same exact attacks that we explained during the course, except instead of sending the private IP as we used to do, you're going to send to the victims the public IP. And we will not send it this way because it's very easy to discover that this is an attack. We're going to do some manipulation. But my point is, we're going to use the public IP, which is 86.97.35.146. This will be the IP to be sent to the victim. So it will allow, according to the port forwarding, it will connect to our Kali Linux machine. So let me go to exploitation tool, and I'm going to choose set, just as a proof of concept. Okay. And from set, I'm going to choose, let's take, for instance, social engineering attack. Then let's take a website attack. We went through that before. We're going to just follow the steps. The only change we're going to make, it's to change the port as the IP from a private IP to a public IP. So let me take, for instance, Java applet attack. And we're going to choose the web template. And I will not repeat the steps because this attack has been already explained. Now notice here that he's asking me, are you using a port forwarding? Yes. In my router, I did configure the port forwarding. So I'm going to type here, yes. Let me just move the screen so it will not confuse us or even close it. And he needs the IP address to be IP address set web server. This could be an external IP. So now what I'm going to do, I will not add the private IP. I'm going to add the public IP. So I'm going to copy this IP, and this will be the IP to be sent to the victim. No, if the payload is on a different machine. And here, I'm not explaining the attack because this has been already explained. I'm just, just a wizard. I'm just going through the steps as a proof of concept. And he's creating a website that include a payload. So I'm going to choose, for instance, number 2, because number 2 will allow the victim to connect to us. And we're going to choose number 1. And which port? The port that I'm going to choose, I have to make sure that on my router it has been forward to my Kali Linux machine. So I'm going to keep the 443, and actually this was why I requested to forward the traffic to 443 in my router. And we're going to choose 6. I'm finished. And he's doing the payload right now. According to the, if everything went well, if I open, once he finished and he told me that the payload is ready, if I go to any computer on a different network and put the public IP, I should be connected to my Kali Linux machine. And we're going to see that in a few seconds. So while, yeah, exactly, I believe, he's preparing the payload, but my point is, okay, let's take that here and let's go to any machine. I don't have any other network, but I'm going to try here, for instance. As you can see, this is my public IP, right? I used that few seconds ago. I put it inside the browser and nothing will show up. Let me now type HTTPS and the IP, and let's see what will happen. Now you can see that he's establishing a connection. Okay, so he's taking a few time, but let's see in Kali Linux, is he accepting anything, or any connection is going to be established? Not yet. Just a few seconds until you get a page. Now the point here, what I'm trying to say is that I'm using now a public IP and it's connected to my local computer. It will take a few seconds, but if you do that from a different place using any device, you can do that from a smartphone, from a computer. As a victim can connect through a smartphone, through a computer. Is not the case. All the attacks that we already explained can be repeated one more time, but using the public IP and configuring the port forwarding. Okay, this may take a few seconds. Okay, let me pause just to wait until it finishes. It's taking too much time, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to try from my smartphone to log into the same website, and I'm going to see here what's going to happen. So from my smartphone, I'm going to the browser and I'm going to type the same IP. And I want you to watch what will happen on the screen, if it's going to do a connection or not. Just need to make sure that it's HTTPS, because HTTPS connect to port 443. While we are doing the attack, we configured HTTP, it should work on port 80. See, now my smartphone has been compromised locally, and even this is the IP from the smartphone, the public IP, and I'm compromising the smartphone from my outside. So it's not about this specific attack. My objective of this lecture is to show you how can we do the same attack that we explained earlier, but remotely. And the point here was the port forwarding. I just need to make sure that you understood exactly what is port forwarding. Just sitting inside the network. Now, if you do that, you can repeat all the attacks one more time remotely, but please do not do that in an unprofessional way. So you can have two different networks, try from a network to another, but do not misuse that. I already went through that through the disclaimer at the beginning, but I'm repeating myself. Finally, one point remaining, which is I cannot send to the victim the IP this way, because this is like an evidence. He can do some search and know from where this IP is coming. And it's not the right way. We already explained how to shorten the IP. If you remember, there is some website, you give them the IP, it will give you a name. But during the next lecture, I'm going to show you how that it's done in a professional way, using some of the dynamic DNS website. You register in some website, and they will give you a name instead of IP, and you send to people name instead of IP.